Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Data+Women Germany. I know we've been absent for a while, but I'm happy to get started again. So just a few words about what Data+Women Germany actually is, and about myself and my co-lead. So hi, my name is Heidi Kalber. I'm a Tableau ambassador and an associate solution expert at Woodmark Consulting. I founded Data+Women Germany a couple years back in late 2019 as part of the Global Data+Women initiative. I know we've been absent for a while, but now we're back. And my co-lead, Julia Büchting, is also a Tableau ambassador. She's a senior consultant at Deloitte, and she will not be joining us today, but you will definitely be seeing her at future events. So what exactly is Data+Women? Data+Women is an initiative aiming to offer women a community around their work in data to share their knowledge and experiences, celebrate their successes. And while it originated from within the Tableau community, it's open to people from all backgrounds. And also, it's not just about women, it's aimed at people of all genders because we're all united under one common goal of advancing diversity in the data community. Emily Kuhn said it best a couple years back, it's data plus women, it's not data minus men. So what do we have in store for you today? Today is the very first event in our new series, A Day in the Life of, where we introduce you to different jobs in the data industry. We chat for each event with an industry professional to understand what that position entails and how to get there. So I'm overjoyed to be joined today by Sarah Bartlett, who is a 5-time Tableau Visionary, founder of the initiative IronQuest, and who also co-leads the London Tableau user group today. Thank you for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you for inviting me on, Heidi. I'm excited to be your first Day in the Life guest.
Yes, thank you. So to get us started, what exactly is your position currently?
So I currently work as a BI, so Business Intelligent Enablement Director at JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle. So we're a real estate company. We're global, so you've probably seen us everywhere with our names on buildings. Every time I travel, I see JLL. There's no escaping it. But over at JLL, I work within the EMEA region. So there's actually three of me. So we have Laura in the US and we have Margarita who's based in Australia, and each of us look after our respective regions, our analysts specifically, just ensuring that they're set up for success because those people are out delivering BI solutions to our clients.
Okay. So let's assume I'm a complete layperson and I don't have anything to do with the data industry. If you and I got to chatting on, like, I don't know, the bus, how would you explain your job to me?
Yeah, good question. So I've explained it a couple of different ways over the years. Prior to this, I worked in a centre of excellence role, so it was still focused on enablement, and there was some similarities to what I do here. But I think ultimately it comes down to helping people see and understand data. And I know some of you will know I've stolen that tagline from Tableau, but I think that's ultimately what we do. We want to ensure our people are set up for success. When they're delivering work to whether that be clients, stakeholders, whoever that may be. And at JLL in particular, it's important that we have some form of what's the word, like we're delivering similar solutions to clients. Everything's at a similar level. We're not delivering kind of a substandard to this client and a better standard for this client. We want everyone to be the same high standard. So therefore, we work centrally to ensure that those standards are maintained, and we have practices in place to support people with that. But also at the same time, ensuring that everyone is set up for success. They know where to turn if they need help. They're onboarded correctly, and just essentially creating a great place to work.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. And to the audience, nice to see that the crowd is growing. If you have any questions for Sarah, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll shuffle them in. So, Sarah, now that we know like the big picture of what you do for work, can you expand a bit on what like a typical day looks like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, every day is different, as they often are. But I think ultimately, lot of my work boils down to it's that delivering excellence piece. So at JLL, we have a set of style guidelines that we deliver to in Tableau specifically. We actually worked on delivering some new style guidelines earlier this year. So that was a big project where we worked on actually putting those together and training people on the new guidelines. But now they're in production and people are using them. And part of my role is to ensure that anything that's built in Tableau aligns to our guidelines. So I might be working with an analyst to go through something that they've produced and just doing an assessment to make sure that it is aligned to what we would expect in terms of colors and layout and things like that. Other things that we do are if somebody has maybe recently joined us and they've gone through the training to understand those guidelines, ultimately they have to then complete a capstone to kind of put their training into practice. And it's something, if you're in a role similar to this, I would fully kind of recommend, because it's really useful, because I think you can do the training and at the end of the training think, oh yeah, I know this stuff. But then I think it's a different story when you're faced with a blank page in Tableau and you don't really know how to put those guidelines into practice, and you forget what colors should be applied where. So it's a good exercise, but my role comes in because I'm responsible for marking those capstones, but people might send me the capstones to review, and then I'll have a session with those people to kind of walk through feedback for them. So that's another thing you might find me doing. We also lead enablement sessions in our respective regions. So we work across three main tools, so Tableau, Databricks, and Alteryx. So we have a weekly session where we, or one of our ambassadors internally, will lead a gamification hour. So it might be for Tableau, we walk through a Workout Wednesday challenge, or Alteryx, we might do a weekly challenge from their on their forums, whatever it may be. I'm responsible for setting up those sessions and just making sure they run smoothly. I also set up other sessions for people to get together and just share the work that they're doing. So anyone can come along to those sessions and maybe present a project they worked on, or maybe they found a cool new trick in one of our tools and they want to share it with others. I set up forums like that. But really, my role is just about bringing people together and sharing successes with each other.
Yeah, sounds amazing. So we know where you're at today. We know what you do in your day-to-day work. Can you give us a bit of background, like how did you get here to where you're at now?
Yeah, so maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I worked in consulting. So ultimately, I've been working in analytics for about 13 years in total, and my role started out as an analyst, and then I moved into consulting, and I was in consulting for about 5 years, working with every kind of industry and company you can imagine, but mainly focused around the tech sector. A lot of my work was on end-to-end delivery, so quite often I was on single-person projects where I would come in and they would say, "Hey, we need to build out a dashboard or a set of dashboards," and I would work from right at the very beginning right through to delivery of those dashboards, doing all the project management in between. And as part of that, quite often some of these organizations maybe didn't have an established kind of center of excellence or enablement or any kind of enablement function. So sometimes it felt like I was delivering projects and I knew that they weren't going to be used. There wasn't kind of that support network that I could see that was needed, or maybe I could see that there was some skill gaps in their team that maybe they needed to fill if they wanted to go on and deliver work like this themselves. So that got me really interested in enablement. And in one of my projects, I was working loosely with an enablement team at this company, and it got me thinking about the role. And at the time, I knew a lot of people that worked in Center of Excellences or enablement, and I was super interested in that area. So through my consulting work, I was able to do some kind of side of desk work with clients completely for free, just to more advisory kind of, if you want to set up a community internally, these are some of the things you might want to think about. But again, so often that was working with somebody where it was their side of desk activity. So it was with best intentions, they were going to do something, but they also had their day job to contend with as well. And through going through all of that, I realized, I really wanted to work in an enablement function myself. And around that time, luckily, a role came up with Red Hat. So I knew the manager who was there. I'd met him at previous Tableau conference. He was based in the US, but they had a need for an enablement person in EMEA because they had a team in the US and they had a team in India. And he had been getting up at crazy hours to train the folks in India, but it just didn't work with the time zone. So we know time zones are a challenge, but having someone in kind of the middle in EMEA would have worked better, because it meant that they could speak to India in the morning and the US in the afternoon. So hence why he wanted somebody in my region. Happened to be me, so I joined that team, and then I began working in a Centre of Excellence team there. So I actually worked with Emily Kund, who you mentioned at the beginning. So we were both on the same team. Now in that role, it was more focused. We had 4 key pillars. So we did training. So that was primarily Tableau training, but also just data best practices. We did internal consulting. So that was where we worked with internal teams who maybe wanted to POC a new Tableau functionality, or there was something they couldn't quite tackle themselves, so they didn't have the skill set. So we would kind of hop in there and help them on short-term projects. We did onboarding, so any new people that were coming into the business that were going to be using Tableau, we would set them up and make sure that they had everything that they needed to be successful. And then we also did enablement as well. So that was all the surrounding activities. So we had a data doctor program where people could come for point in time help. We ran internal tugs, we ran other webinars and events, and just kept people engaged on our internal platforms as well. So I did that for probably about 2.5 years. Unfortunately, I was made redundant from that position, so they decided to get away, well, moved all the data stuff internally into the individual kind of spoke teams. We ran a hub and spoke model. So that was when I joined JLL after that. So my role at JLL is very different to what I did at Red Hat, but the same principles apply in terms of enablement.
Okay, amazing. Um, so let's say I want to become a BI enablement director. I have no experience in consulting, and the company I currently work for doesn't have a center of excellence. How can I gather the skills that you would recommend for this position?
Yeah, so I think so often I've seen this happen organically where you tend to find someone who's super engaged, and you find this with users who maybe don't do enablement and they just really want to learn the tool and get all the certifications. But also with enablement, I think you find naturally people that people will make themselves known in their organization, that they maybe they're organizing events just because they love it so much, or they're sharing external events with the internal community. I think it all starts by being that person. So doing everything that you can to support your teams and your users internally, that likely would start off as a side of desk activity, so it would be in addition to your day job. And then with that, just try and get more and more buy-in, more and more people engaged, people coming along to these events and proving the value of them. So ultimately, everything boils down to value. So if you can show that by running all these activities that you're helping the business, maybe you're helping them save money by not investing in external training, or you're helping them deliver excellence, like what I mentioned before, that I think then you could maybe articulate the need for a role like this, so a full-time role just working purely on enablement. Even better if you can get a team. You may not be able to, but I think it all starts by just proving value in these efforts, and going from there.
Yeah, I love that. Um, okay, so let's say a position for a BI enablement director opens up, and you think about your network, like all the people who may be looking for a new position. What kind of person would you recommend this job for?
Question. So I think somebody who's very passionate about this area. So typically most people in the Tableau community are quite passionate. So that kind of sums us up. We're quite a passionate community in general. If someone's passionate about the tools that they're working with, and that doesn't have to be just Tableau, it can be whatever tool that you're working with. I think it's important to note that these principles would apply across most tools, right? It might not even be a visualization tool, but they need to be passionate about the area. They need to be passionate about helping people, and giving back. I think you need to be a people person. It's not the right role for someone who just wants to be kind of head down developing. It's not going to be the right role for that kind of person. So you need to be a people person. Someone who perhaps has got good marketing skills would also be someone I think would fit in well, because there is a lot of marketing that comes with this role. You're trying to get buy-in. You're trying to advertise events sometimes. So having that background, I think, would also be beneficial. And then just someone who maybe has some experience in change management, because quite often organizations might be facing maybe they're trying to change the data culture, and I think with that it's helpful to understand what comes with it, with change management and the principles that apply there. So a combination of those skills. And then of course, I've been asked this question recently: do you need to be an expert in the tools that you're enabling to be successful? And I don't think you do, but I think it's beneficial if you understand it to some extent. So I mean, in my current role, we're doing some enablement on tools that I'm definitely not an expert in, but I'm borrowing some of those principles from what I've done with Tableau to drive it forward. But it definitely helps if you'll be able to, if you are an expert yourself, because you can then maybe stand in if you don't have anyone else to deliver a webinar, for instance. So it's not essential, but I think it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, again, if the audience has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Um, so Sarah, you already mentioned like the the general roadmap of how to get into that kind of position. If someone is on this call and says, wow, this sounds like my absolute dream job, but I don't have the skills to map out like a 5-year plan of how to get there, what are like the immediate couple of steps they can do this month to move closer towards that position?
Yes, so I mean, depends where they're working currently, or maybe they're even a student and they're not currently in the workplace. But I think even outside of work, there's things you could be doing, right? And that will set you up for success in this role and prove your skills. So before I worked in enablement, I had a blog. Still have a blog today, not so active these days, but I think that's a good place to start, because writing about maybe solutions or a project you've been working on will give you the skills that you need at work to do this role, because chances are you are going to be writing articles and things when you work in enablement. So that's something you could be doing completely outside of work, to share your skills, but also, that's advertising to potential recruiters that you're passionate, that you want to help people, maybe if you're writing solutions, and you have the skills to be able to do that. So I think that's something you could think about. Getting involved in events like this is definitely helpful as well. Growing your network. I mentioned at the beginning I was at a networking event for Data+Women yesterday, and I think one of the takeaways from that was just getting involved, meeting people in different arenas, because I think if you can make yourself known to as many people that you really want to do this thing, the chances of you getting a role in this thing are greater, because a role may come up at somebody's organization and then you'll be top of mind because you've just told them that you really long term you want to work in enablement. So just letting everyone know that's what you want to be doing, it's definitely beneficial, and making the effort to get yourself out there and meet people. Obviously putting yourself forward to speak as well, because you will be in this kind of role, you'll be no doubt on calls, hosting calls. You need to be able to communicate effectively. So if you feel comfortable putting yourself out there and nominating yourself to speak at TUGs, whether that be in person or virtual, there's plenty of options. And I know the TUGs are always looking for speakers. And then at work, I think just touching on things I said before, start just almost doing the role before you even have it. So if it's going to go down well at your organization, sharing links on things like Teams and Slack, for resources that people can point to. If someone has a question about one of the tools that you're working with, answering those questions for them, or linking them up with people that can help. Just try and imagine you're doing the role already and see maybe where there's some gaps that you can help with at your organization. Could be maybe setting up a whole day of activities centered around that tool, and getting speakers internally to come in and talk about what they've been working on and just drive excitement. But whatever it is, I think all those things will drive you in the right direction.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. I think there are currently no questions in the chat, but if someone thinks of any questions later, what is the best way to follow your journey or to reach out to you, Sarah?
Yes, so on most platforms, you'll find me at Sarah Loves Data, at my blog, sarahlovesdata.co.uk, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't know what my LinkedIn handle is, but you'll find me. So yeah, no, you'll find me somewhere. You can message me.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. And as Sarah mentioned, we are always looking for speakers. So if you want to introduce your job to us and to others, then feel free to reach out and take that first step towards a BI enablement director position. So what do we have planned for you in the next couple of weeks? I'm aiming to host these kind of events bi-weekly. Unfortunately, 2 weeks from now, I'm on holiday. So you have to wait for 4 weeks for the next one, but we do have a couple of events coming up. So on Thursday, November the 7th at 3 p.m. German time, we have Marine Ried. She'll be talking about her work as a data analyst/engineer, and especially about the difference between the two, depending on the task she has every day. And then 2 weeks after that, on Thursday, November 21st, we're joined by Diliana Bossens, who will talk about her work as a data and AI literacy trainer. So lots of interesting positions coming up. Again, if you have any job you want to talk about, introduce us to your position, or if you have specific questions about, hey, I'm looking at that kind of position, can you host someone who can tell us what it actually entails, then feel free to reach out either to myself or to Julia, or there's probably a contact the team button on our user page. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at our future events. That being said, thank you so much, Sarah. It was super interesting chatting with you. And we'll drop all the links to Sarah's profiles in the recording later on, probably. So if you have any questions for Sarah, feel free to reach out. Yeah, Sarah, again, thank you so much for being part of the inaugural event of this series. And yeah, have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of the week. Yeah.
Thank you, Heidi. I think this is a great idea, and I think there's a lot we can learn about people's roles. So thank you, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.